Let's see. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I just want to do a little video on some of the stuff I've been following on the DA, local DA, in the courts, and some of the stuff on the news events with police things. And I'll just maybe add this video on as a little update, and I'm going to post some of the articles. What I want to just give you is what they're doing here in Corpus Christi. There was a murder case I've talked about. A girl by the name of Hayden shot her boyfriend, killed him. And the case, they convicted her, gave her 40 years. But the case depended upon whether it was self-defense or whether she just killed him. So a big piece of the evidence in the case would have been, and in all self-defense cases, one of the biggest pieces of evidence is the distance of the gun from the victim, the person who was murdered. That's like the biggest thing, when you're doing a case of self-defense or intentional homicide. So, in perspective, that's a big thing. Well, during the trial, they convicted the girl, and they had a medical examiner here that worked for the prosecutor, or came in and testified on behalf of the prosecutor and the district attorney, Mark Skirka. And he went on the stand and said, I think that the gun was 3 feet away, which backed the prosecution and, looked bad on the Hayden, the girl that they were trying to say it was self-defense. Well, after they convicted her, the prosecutor, Jenny Dorsey, who worked under District Attorney Mark Skirka, a few days after the big trial, the big conviction, she sent a letter to the defense. Now, the defense is John Gilmore, and if I'm remembering, he was in some documentaries over the years. He deals with a lot of the injustice and illegal activity that goes on, whether it be with cops or stuff like this. I believe John Gilmore is national, and I think he also represented Hanoverton. So when I saw he's here working on some defense, and I think he did pro bono, he did 3 things in the past, I realized he's an advocate. He's not, somebody that gets paid off to do stuff. So when the letter went to the defense team, the letter said, by Jenny Dorsey, they said, we all agree to a new trial, which is a big thing for the prosecution to send a letter like that to defense. They said because the medical examiner had a wavering opinion. Now, this is a lie when you watch this. It's what I want you to see, and I'm going to show you how the media now is starting to manipulate. The Caller Times is the only one that's really telling you the truth on this. And Channel 3 News, or Channel 6 News, just began entering into the fray. And they're kind of manipulating. So now you're getting into media. I'll explain that in a second. So, when the defense team for Hayden got the letter saying, you know what, we all agree to a new trial because there was a contradictory opinion on the distance of the gun from the victim. But then, in the paper itself, this is why they wanted to get it all before a judge. The reason that the medical examiner had a, quote, wavering opinion was the district attorney's office, Skirka, and the prosecutor. When that medical examiner initially told them his unbiased opinion it was a contact wound, they went and pressured him to change his opinion. And it's stated in court, it's in the paper now, with his testimony. They came up to him and said, your opinion differs from our guy. I'd like to know who your guy is. They said, we have another opinion, differs from yours. He knew he was being pressured by the DA to change evidence. And this is his response. I can live with 3 feet. He knew they were pressuring him. He said, you know what? I can tell you The gun, the furthest it might have been was 3 feet. Now, the DA and Jenny Dorsey and them are trying to present that to the public as that medical examiner himself. You see? He began to change all on his own. And now Channel 6 News, which is being deceptive, just ran an article yesterday, and they don't do the newspaper, they just do the media here. But I read it online, and now they're doing a whole thing on how this medical examiner, Shakel or whoever, he had some problems in his past, and now they're doing a whole thing on how medical examiners, they can be so problematic because when their opinions waver, it causes a lot of problems. Don't ever forget, the reason he, quote, wavered was because they pressured him and they went up to him. That's why he wavered. That wasn't a wavering. And the prosecution knew that that was going to come out, and the DA knew, and they might face criminal charges. So that's why they quickly, which I said to you the other day, the reason they quickly agreed to a new trial was they didn't want all this to come out. So now you're having the local media begin to manipulate. The Caller Times is the one that's telling the truth on this, and Channel 6 News, I believe it was 6 News, and people in the media, and people in politics, and judges, they all know each other. And you can have a media organization like Channel 6, they might even be relatives to Skarka or somebody. So you're not seeing truth, you're seeing manipulation. So I commend the Caller Times, but Channel 6 is beginning to run stories on how medical doctors, examiners, waverings, opinions can cause so many problems. Don't ever forget, the only reason he wavered is because they went up to him and put pressure on him, and that's in court. And I believe they're going to probably have charges on our DA, criminal charges. Of course, he would be removed from his position. I'll read a few of this. Any allegation of prosecutorial misconduct, the DA said, is unsupported. Prosecutor Gary Barton told the Caller Times the office agrees to a new trial, but doesn't agree with the allegations. Now, the DA began at first saying, we want a new trial. Then the next article I've been reading the last few days, they said no new trial. Now they had to change, say, yes, okay, we want. Why are they doing that? If they agreed to a new trial, which they did in the beginning, it acknowledged that they did something wrong. They withheld that evidence. But then when they had to be brought before Judge Nanette Hassett, to continue to agree to a new trial would have admitted that they did something wrong. So then they changed and said, no, now we don't want one. No, we were right all along. But then it was quite obvious they were only changing not in the interest of justice, but because they wanted to defend themselves. So they wavered 3 times. Now they're back, yes, we want one, but we are not saying anything was done wrong. You could see they're in the hot seat. Now, Mark Skurka, this is in the paper, of intentionally withholding. Defense lawyers accused prosecutors, including District Attorney Mark Skurka, of intentionally withholding the medical examiner's initial opinion that the muzzle of the shotgun was against the body of the victim, which the defense said would have supported their theory of self-defense, which is true. Dr. Adel Shaker testified at the trial he thought it was 3 feet away. That's because he changed it. They pressured him to change it. According to the previous draft, Dorsey sought advice from Skurka, and which Skurka said, don't worry, experts sometimes change their opinion, especially if you pressure them. I think Skurka is right, and she says, experts, they can change. Look in context. They can change if you go up to them and pressure them, and then withhold that. Skurka testified Monday that he relied on information Dorsey gave him, and he didn't have all the information. Now you got a thing because it's in court, and you can see how they work behind the scenes. In the case of either murder or self-defense, District Attorney Mark Skurka said the medical examiner's waiver of opinion did not meet the criteria for information. Now they keep referring to wavering opinion. This was not some innocent wavering opinion. He was pressured to change, and they withheld the fact that they pressured him, which is illegal, and the initial opinion. Prosecutor Jenna Dorsey about alert quoting his attorney's opinion about the distance from the gun. In our office, sometimes we use each other as sounding boards. This is the DA's office. And we kind of talked it out. But this is Skirka. I never tried to convince her or ordered her not to reveal it. Whenever you have a political figure, say Clinton type things, I never ordered them. Hillary Clinton email, I never ordered. That's a sign. Whenever you hear that language, nobody ever orders. If a cop's going to go and do something illegal or whatever, he doesn't order, I order you. He could just say. So when they begin to use that language, you see they're legally now beginning to get ready to back themselves up. He said, I never ordered her not to reveal it. But in all the articles, it says openly what he did say to her. And he said, no, it's a wavering opinion. You don't have to reveal it. But now you see behind the scenes, it was wavering because they pressured him to change his opinion, that medical examiner. And he's now saying, I never ordered her. Yeah, but you gave all the intention to her. This doesn't sound like it reaches that level, he said. This is like key evidence in a defense case of murder or self-defense. And he said it didn't sound important to him. Dorsey penned a letter to the defense about the doctor's initial opinion being, and then she wrote, and because this prosecutor Dorsey brought it to her lady that's really in charge, right over her, Rita Cable, I think her name is, and they said, no, you were supposed to reveal it. Who told you not to reveal it? She said, I talked to the district attorney, the head guy. You're seeing now how they do it. Second chair prosecutor Richard McKay met with Shaker and pointed out his opinion differed from that of the firearms examiner. See, they met with that medical examiner and said, from our examiner, it's different. She asked Shaker to reconsider his opinion. You don't do that. The prosecution went to the medical examiner and asked, can you change it? And in a text he said, I could live with 3 feet. The gun being 3 feet. So you see all the pressure. All of that's illegal what they did. The Caller Times is dealing with it. And I wanted you to see that. I want you to see what goes on. I'm going to look at one more case. I might post this one. It's on the laptop, so I'll read it. This is the Laquan McDonald, the kid that was shot in Chicago, which has been a big case. But the question in that case also was when they were looking for the video of the shooting of Laquan McDonald, which was the black kid in Chicago, which made it to the news and all. The problem they had on that one was there was no audio sound on any of the video cameras in any of the cop cars. And this was like, I wonder why there was no sound. And I remember why, because they probably screwed with the cameras and did all types of illegal activity so they wouldn't be reported murdering people. That's why. But I remember how the chief of police came out and he's been fired. Rahm Emanuel's probably going to have to resign, the mayor of Chicago, corrupt guy. But I remember the chief of police came out and said, well, there's no evidence that any of the cameras are ever messed with, like the cops would purposely shut off their dash cams. He said, there's no evidence of that. Now look at this. This came out yesterday in the news. The Chicago officer who fatally shot black teenager Laquan McDonald, this is news I'm reading, intentionally damaged his dash cam and never synced his mic to it. Oh, and he's not the only one. More than 1,800 police maintenance logs obtained by Freedom of Information Act show a disturbing trend for Chicago cops intentionally and routinely tampering with their dash cams and mics in an effort to block audio. So they just go in the cop cars and shut the mics off, do whatever. They go to work to commit crimes. Jason Van Dyke, the officer charged with fatally shooting 17-year-old McDonald, caused intentional damage to his dash cam at least once, along with other instances of dash cam breaking. The logs show. In their own logs, I used to write in fire logs, they have police logs, and in their logs it says, oh yeah, we broke our cameras. The day of the killing, audio wasn't picked up. The vehicle did pick up the video, which we knew that. Oh, I gotta scroll down. A month after killing, it was apparent Van Dyke he damaged his computer. In less than a year, there were 90 recorded instances of microphones missing from those Chicago police cars. On 30 other occasions, audio recording on dash cams had neither been not turned on or had been intentionally stopped. So these cops were just going to work and shutting off their dash cams, destroying things. All those cases. 16 times in just more than a year. This story, I'll post it. I'll stick it on along with this when I put this up. But what I wanted you to follow in these little things, was these are not like one-time incidents where there were little mistakes that are made. These are intentional crimes, to cover up crimes, to commit crimes. And just surprisingly, finally, in the local media, and the Caller Times is the one that's revealing it, because Channel 6 News, they're trying to, they don't want that to come out, and that's where they're running stories, making it look like sometimes medical examiners' opinions waver. I'm sure that's true. But if they waver because you pressured them, and there's testimony in court now, because they had to go to court, that that's indeed what happened, and that the evidence that was withheld was key evidence, very rarely do you see that. But they know that a lot of that's been going on for a very long time, because there was a couple of other articles last year about this. And so I wanted you to get a grasp of that. I've been commenting on it. I might just stick this this is not a teaching video, but these are a few articles that have been coming up, and I wanted you to get a good look at that. And so there's still court hearings going on with all this stuff here. But Scripture talks about, I just prayed this morning and did a prayer time, and I pray for nations, I pray for all the things I've mentioned. But it says God rules in the courts of men. God, in Mary's Magnificat, the great prayer that Mary makes, she says, oh, you brought down the mighty. And so what God is not, he doesn't want vengeance in the sense of getting even. But if these are not light, you should not take these things light. If you think that this woman was guilty of murder, homicide, and she deserved 40 years, then so be it, then she should get it. But if it was self-defense, then it would be very wrong. You wouldn't want to do that. That's not justice. And now if you are making positions where now we don't want her to have a retrial or whatever, and you're only doing those things in order because it would make you look bad for your future as a DA or whatever, now you're talking about sacrificing people on the altar of your own jobs, careers, and professions. So this is something that I just wanted you to get a view of. And God does deal with these types of issues, and he does shine the light. You'd be amazed how many times in Scripture it says Jesus spoke in the audience of the people. Paul did this too. Said, when all the people knew, then it restrained the activities that people were going to do. When they were going to take Jesus, crucify him, they said, but not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar of the people. And so a lot of justice takes place when there are voices to speak out, when people are not intimidated to speak out. John, do you ever help the cops? Last night or the night before, they came to my door at 4 a.m., the CCPD. Really? Yes. Why? They asked for my help, and I helped them. There was a drive-by shooting right down the block. They shot up a man's house. And it was about 4 in the morning, and a cop just stopped. And I have cameras in the front of my house, audio for security. And he saw them, and they asked if they could look at our cameras on our security system. Maybe they could see the vehicle leaving the neighborhood. And I said, sure, and I let him look. We tried to find it. We couldn't see it. It was dark. So that was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, He thanked me. Oh, thank you. But all of these other things, there are things wrong with that. All of these Chicago cops having a whole history of dismantling their dash cams, shutting the audio off. There were many cases. I didn't read the whole thing. That's just a history of it. See, the reason you have problems in civilian policing in the United States is there are ingrained histories of illegal activities, crimes, on and on and on. That's why you have the problem. Okay? So I just did this little update. I'll do the little prayer at the end. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance. I'll give you the other one too. Stand fast and prepare thee, for the sword shall devour round about thee. Arise, O God, and judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. God rules in the affairs of men. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that also shall he reap. God's also concerned with justice, okay? It's a pretty day today. God bless everybody. Just a little update.